Minnesota Women in Conservation. We're really delighted to be hosting the subject of farmland access, transfer, preservation, and conservation. And because this is really going to be populated and represented by Renewing the Countryside staff and team, I wanted to take a minute to also introduce you to Renewing the Countryside, who is the organization that has created Minnesota Women in Conservation. Can you just verify, Allison, that you can see my full screen? Thank you. Thank you. Now, it's also showing up that people are needing to be admitted. Maddie, you're taking care of that? Okay. So again, thank you and welcome to Minnesota Women in Conservation. We are nurturing land and community. And hold on. Renewing the Countryside has been supporting and connecting stewards of land and farms with the necessary resources to thrive for over 20 years. We have been working with working lands and conservation programs, local food systems support and programs, and supporting vibrant communities with farm events, urban ag, and Go Farm Connect. There are many programs that are also related to this topic, from urban ag to Go Farm Connect to farm to school and early child care, and farmers market hubs, a full spectrum of program support for rural agriculture and land conservation. And so why does Minnesota Women in Conservation matter? Well, across the state of Minnesota, women producers manage over 9 million acres of farmland. Female farmers listing their primary occupations has increased as of 2022 to 35,623 women in farming and 19,000 women as non-operating landowners. Female farmers are involved in every type of farming as well, as you can see, from grains and oilseed to beef, cattle, dairy, veggies, fruits, nuts, poultry, eggs, sheep and goats, other animals, flowers, and pigment producers. Our objectives for MNWiC are to welcome all women in agriculture and land stewardship, to increase women's knowledge and understanding and use of conservation and, of course, of NRCS programs and opportunities. We are shepherding women, We are shepherding women through the process of program assistance, and we are counting on building a lasting legacy with you of relationships and regional networks. Our team involves myself, Chris Marion, who's here with us, a marketing specialist, Kara Komodo, who's with us, data management specialist, Rebecca Christoffel, who may be with us. She's the evaluation specialist, and many of the team from Renewing the Countryside, Jan Joanides, Jody, Sarah, and others. And we have 4 regional coordinators representing tri-county regions that I want to introduce you to, and the incredible abundance of female producers and farms in each of these regions. So Allison Ryan, who is here with us from the North Central Northeast region, covering Aiken and Itasca and expanding to these other counties just south of her. Alex Kaminsky, you can see, who's with us from the upper Minnesota Valley region we call West Central, with Lackaparl, Chippewa, and Swift counties. And you can see again the high count of female producers and farmland being worked. Noreen Thomas, who is with us from the Northwest region in the Moorhead area, covering Clay, Norman, and Wilkin counties, is a champion in her region, and we're very proud of that. And Maddie Barch, who is with us today and working in the fiber mill right now. She's covering the southeast regional counties of Goodhue, Rice, and Dakota, and you see the very high count of female producers of farms and farmland south of the metro. Well, how are we reaching people? Well, our goal is to equip women to implement conservation practices, and we're reaching them through potlucks, webinars, learning circles, and field days. So far, the participation has been relatively even between landowners, farmers, landowners, and conservation and ag support persons, with the smaller piece of the pie, but the very essential and welcome piece of the pie of beginning farmers. This is a map created by Kara for us that is showing the concentration of women participating in our events in a cumulative number over many months. And we're hoping that you'll help us turn the whole state green, dark green, with great participation in networks. Here's a picture in West Central at one of the potlucks that Alex hosted at the Madison Mercantile with 49 contacts, and you can see the turnouts are robust. Here is Allison leading a December learning circle on soil health with 32 attending. So these are the ways in which we're reaching out and building networks and transferring knowledge with each other. We're getting such an enormously positive response that the connections and resources available are even more abundant than I realized. The sessions were inspiring. I learned a lot and made valuable new connections. So we hope that this enthusiasm is contagious and continues. This was a recent event that was a field day in Renville County that Alex hosted with partners from Extension and the Soil and Water District and Master Gardeners. And 60 women showed up. They had to literally stop registration because there was such an outpouring of interest to walk through this tree farm. And this will be a wonderful upcoming event in my neighborhood here in Red Wing, hosted by Wendy Johnson at Hay Creek Hills Farm, where it will be Sunday afternoon, July 27th from 1 to 5. And we will get to see the kind of conservation work Wendy has been tending and nurturing and stewarding in her land for the last 10 years. So please join us continually for the 4th Wednesday of the month. Sometimes it'll be the 5th. But you can find us in social media, and we're very happy that you're with us today. So thank you. Now I'm going to stop sharing. And I want to take a moment to introduce you to our guest speaker and specialist, Bonnie, I should have found out how to pronounce your last name, Warndahl. Bonnie is the Farmland Access and Transfer Specialist with Renewing the Countryside. She is passionate as a nature enthusiast and advocate for sustainability and resilient food systems. Before taking her position with Renewing the Countryside, which is RTC, as Farmland Access and Transfer Specialist, she operated her cut flower farm, agritourism, and floral design business in Colfax, Wisconsin for almost a decade. Her personal experience in overcoming the challenges of acquiring land tenure equipped her with a valuable firsthand experience of farmland access and transfer issues, which aids in guiding her clients towards success. Bonnie manages the Farmland Access Hub, a consortium of partners, including nonprofits, government agencies, local companies, private citizens, all dedicated to assisting beginning farmers with their quest for land tenure and in the upper Midwest. Thank you so much for this, Bonnie. Please proceed. We're excited to hear what you have to share. Thank you.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Burke. Let me get my screen up to share here. All right, is that showing up to everybody?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, let me know if anything looks funny or if there's questions in the chat that need to be addressed. We're going to save questions till the end, but if you need like a clarifying question about something I'm talking about within the presentation, feel free to put that in the chat and one of the moderators will help out with that. Okay, so yeah, I'm Bonnie Warndahl. I'm the Farmland Access and Transfer Specialist at Renewing the Countryside and a first-generation small-scale regenerative farmer. I started my farm journey through a mentorship with the Women Food and Agriculture Network, or WFAN, in 2013 called Harvesting Our Potential. Over 12 years, I followed my dream of becoming a farmer. I took classes and workshops, went to field days, and spent as much time helping on farms as anyone would allow me. I learned a lot of lessons on rented land and eventually purchased my own farm on a land contract. Today, I'm connecting with you from my farmstead in Colfax, Wisconsin, a little over an hour east of the Twin Cities, where I still grow a smattering of cut flowers, veggies, mushrooms, and herbs, and raise a small flock of poultry. In February of 2022, I started contracting as a Farmland Access Navigator, and in 2023 came on full-time at RTC to fully immerse myself in combating farmland access and transfer challenges. In my role, I manage the Farmland Access Hub and provide technical support to land-seeking farmers and farmland owners interested in providing access to the next generation. In the time we have together today, I'm going to provide some context for why farmland access, transfer, and preservation support is needed. We're going to save, again, discussion questions for the end, but if you do have a clarifying question along the way, feel free to put that in the chat and one of our moderators will bring that to my attention. So what is the issue? Farmland is quietly vanishing at alarming rates. American Farmland Trust, or AFT, which conducts ongoing research to determine how farmland is being lost and the impacts of that loss on communities and food systems, has determined that the US has lost over 11 million acres of farmland in the last 20 years. And we continue to lose 2,000 acres more every single day. That's 2.5 times the size of Central Park in New York City. This slide, which I borrowed from American Farmland Trust, shows 20 years of unrestricted development in Pennsylvania. By 2025, nearly all of the farmland, the top picture is 2005, excuse me. 2025 is the bottom photo. Nearly all of the farmland had been converted to housing and industry. If development continues at the current rate, we will lose at least another 18 million acres of farmland by 2040, an area approximately the size of South Carolina, and possibly as much as 24 million acres. However, better built cities planned for agriculture in mind could reduce the loss to only 11 million acres. Not a big savings, but definitely better than 24 million. Detailed information about this research and land loss projection can be found in the Farms Under Threat 2040 report at AFT's website, which I highly recommend. And the link for that can be found at the bottom of the slide, and I believe we'll also put that into the chat for people. So why does preserving farmland matter? The conversion of quality farmland is irreversible. Resilient life-sustaining soils are fragile ecosystems that take many years to build. Some of the deep, rich soils in the breadbasket of America took centuries to form, and in seconds can be excavated forever, eliminating the capacity of that land to grow resilient, nutrient-dense food, fiber, and fuel. In addition to less land being available for farming, development pressure, recent trends toward land speculation and corporate consolidation of farmland have pushed real estate prices well beyond a financial threshold that most farmers can afford. First-generation farmers are especially disadvantaged. They lack generational knowledge and resources on top of high land prices, high debt loads, lack of access to capital, lack of affordable healthcare, and many other barriers. Without adequate fertile lands and skilled farmers to steward them, our food system security becomes unstable. Land ownership is a great privilege that also comes with great responsibility. More than half of US farmland is privately owned, with the rest being owned by federal, state, and local governments, corporations, nonprofits, and other entities. The vast majority of that privately owned land, nearly 80%, is owned by farmers over the age of 55, who are coincidentally the most skilled food producers. This retiring population of producers is only being replaced by farmers, new farmers, at a rate of 9%. Landholders control power over land. This includes making decisions about its stewardship and its use for current and future generations. As land becomes available to farmers, those who hold the land become integral in the land access space. Providing education to landowners about these issues and the resources to support them and providing responsible land access and stewardship helps to pave the path to a more secure farming future. This slide features a group of farmland owners at a land access event in 2023, hosted by the Farmland Access Hub. These participants engaged in a peer discussion facilitated by our partner, Karen Stetler, at the Land Stewardship Project. The farmland owners at this event shared about their hopes and fears and how to ensure that their land goes to a responsible steward and stays in farming. Advance, here we go. Concerns about farmland loss and food system insecurity are recognized globally. I was certified last year as a farm succession coordinator by the International Farm Transitions Network, which holds ongoing trainings about farm transition and succession all around the world. National organizations like AFT and the Conservation Fund work to protect land and provide better access across the nation. Here in the upper Midwest, many organizations and independent partners work together to mitigate these issues, many of them under the umbrella of the Farmland Access Hub. In 2017, Renewing the Countryside launched the Farmland Access Hub and the Farmland Access Navigator program in partnership with Practical Farmers of Iowa and Marbleseed. It has since grown to a consortium of over 50 partners in Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin, and is in the process of onboarding new partners in Michigan. The Farmland Access Navigator program provides consultation to farmers seeking new or stronger tenure. Navigators are generally experienced farmers who participate in ongoing training to provide the most comprehensive and up-to-date support possible. The hub also provides support to landowners interested in providing land access to farmers or are seeking to transition their land or farm business to new stewards. One way we do this is through a Buy, Protect, Sell program in partnership with American Farmland Trust, using a tool called an agricultural conservation easement, or ACE. An agricultural conservation easement removes development and mining rights from farmland, thus reducing the real estate value. By implementing ACEs, we are able to protect farmland for future use and reduce the value enough to make it more within financial reach of next generation farmers, while still offering landowners a financially secure exit from farmland ownership. Since 2022, RTC has transitioned 2 farms in Minnesota by partnering with American Farmland Trust on Buy, Protect, Sell. Singing Hills Farm in Nerstrand and Hoke Orchard and Gardens in La Crescent. In both examples, AFT purchased the farm, used an agricultural conservation easement to reduce the value by approximately 40%, and then resold or will resell the farm to an emerging farmer at the discounted price. In the Singing Hills transition, RTC and partners fundraised the easement to ensure that the landowner could get full real estate value. In the Hoke Orchard transition, Harry and Jackie Hoke were in a position to donate the easement. The Farmland Access Hub has a vast network of partners and resources to tap into. If you are a landowner seeking assistance with renting or transferring your land or business, or a land-seeking farmer needing assistance with securing land access, you can visit the farmlandaccesshub.org, click on Get Started, and fill out the appropriate intake form. A navigator or staff member can then reach out to you to discuss how to best support you in your goals. We have some key partners in Minnesota that we work with quite regularly. These include American Farmland Trust, Land Stewardship Project, University of Minnesota Extension, the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, and Marbleseed. And I will talk a little more about each one of these and the specific areas that they offer support in that might be helpful to you. And again, I'm with Renewing the Countryside, and RTC has a large base of contractors and skilled staff who can assist with most aspects of farmland access, transfer, and conservation. These include business planning and financial projections, helping farmers identify and refine their skills, goals, or needs, building a lease or strengthening a lease, helping with understanding lending options and getting prepared to qualify for a loan. This includes familiarity with Farm Service Agency and Compeer loans and programs, assistance with understanding and creating a land contract, transitioning a farm through buy, protect, sell, or creating a conservation plan on rented or purchased land. Our partners at Land Stewardship Project, or LSP, also provide support and resources to emerging and transitioning farmers. Their Farm Beginnings class is a multi-month holistic farm business management course for beginning farmers, which I took myself when I was first getting started and highly recommend. Staff members Karen Stetler and Robin Moore both provide farm transition support. And the Farmland Clearinghouse is a web resource on LSP's website to connect farmers with land opportunities in the region. And if you wanted to reach out for support from LSP, I would reach out to Karen Stetler, whose email address is listed there at the bottom. The Minnesota Department of Agriculture offers 4 main resources critical to farmland access and transfer support. Their FarmLink site, intended for farmer to land matchmaking, allows for detailed property searches based on location, size, infrastructure, even soil type. The Down Payment Assistance Grant provides capital to farmers to aid in the purchase of farmland. They have a beginning farmer tax credit, which works as an incentive for the landowners who work with beginning farmers. Landowners receive a tax credit for selling or renting land or equipment to a beginning farmer. And a beginning farmer being defined as someone who has farmed for 10 years or less, which is the USDA definition. The tax credit is a percentage of the sale or rent value, with up to $5,000 available for a land sale. And this program also, because it incentivizes landowners by giving them this tax credit, they often will sell or rent at a discounted rate to that beginning farmer. So it can work twofold that way. Marbleseed also provides a farmer matching classifieds option on their website. Additionally, they host the Ag Solidarity Network, which acts as a social media platform for basically all things farming. This is a great resource for connecting with the ag community and finding resources regionally. You can create a profile easily. I think it's basically just name and email address, and start connecting at agsolidaritynetwork.com. Additionally, Marbleseed hosts a working group called the Allyship Network Working Group. And this group is focused on building a support for BIPOC and historically underserved farmers who are moving into rural communities. At the University of Minnesota Extension, we have Suzanne Hendricks. UMN Extension is active in the farm transfer space, providing many resources on their website, including articles, webinars, transition planning courses, both online and in person. Suzanne provides, I believe, one-to-one transition planning support to landowners and leads much of the farm transition programming. I've attended some of her workshops and trainings, and I believe they offer some pretty extensive courses actually on transition planning for farm landowners. All right, I am going to now introduce my colleague Laura, who's going to talk a little bit about some of her personal experiences working with land-seeking farmers as a Farmland Access Navigator. And then when she's finished, we'll take some questions. So we'll talk to you then. And let me...
Great, thank you, Bonnie.
I'm sharing here. Yeah, you're welcome.
Laura, if you just give me a minute, I want to share with our guests your bio. And that Laura got her start working on organic farms around the US and Brazil before starting Loon Organics with her partner Adam in 2005, growing certified organic vegetables on 1 acre of rented land. After 4 years of renting land, Laura and Adam were able to purchase their 40-acre farm in Hutchinson and begin farming full-time. Loon has marketed through 150-member CSA, 15 years at the Mill City Farmers Market, and wholesale to restaurants, food co-ops, local public schools, and food shelves. Laura has worked as a farm educator and mentor for the past 15 years and now serves as a farm advocate for emerging farmers with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture and a land access navigator with Renewing the Countryside. Thank you so much to bring to life the remarkable information that Bonnie has just shared with us. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. Thanks, Bonnie, for giving an overview. So I have been working as a land access navigator with Renewing the Countryside for about 18 months. And I'm going to share, I have a lot of stories about working with clients, but I'm going to share a success story of a client that I've been working with who just purchased her first farm. She closed on May 15th. And the process that we went through, kind of the themes that come up, the challenges, the success, and my role is very emblematic of a lot of the work that I've been doing with clients. So I'm just going to share a little bit about that, and then hopefully we have time for some questions. So feel free to put those in the chat and we will get to those. So as Bonnie mentioned, the first thing is that people fill out an intake form, typically on the website, or they're referred to us by somebody in the farming world. So Jenny Heck at MDA, at Minnesota Department of Agriculture, who works with the down payment assistance grant, she often will refer farmers who've received the down payment assistance grant to work with a navigator to help them because they are first-time farm buyers. So I got connected to a client about, let's see, I think it was about 6 months ago, and she had received the MDA down payment assistance grant. So that's $15,000 for first-time farm buyers. And she had a background in agriculture in West Africa, where that was her home country. And then she had immigrated and has been living and working in the US, has a family, has been growing in her backyard, getting connected with MIFA, the Minnesota African Immigrant Farming Association, and interested in scaling up, purchasing farmland and growing some of her own cultural foods to sell to her cultural community, but also growing Western vegetables for wholesale, and then eventually getting into some pastured poultry. That's like her 5-year goal. So we started to work together and just evaluate where she was at in the process. And she was working with a realtor. The realtor was helping her look really around within 30 to 45 minutes of the Twin Cities. And it's really, as a navigator, we work kind of in partnership on behalf of the farm seeker, but we're working with realtors, we're working with lenders, we're working with MDA, just all of these different partners that come into the process and helping the client understand, like, what is the process for buying farmland, for buying a farm, because it is different than buying a home. Some of them have purchased a home, so they might be familiar with that, but there's some intricacies, right, for buying farmland that is quite different than buying a house or real estate. So the client and I really worked on figuring out for her the financing piece. She was working with the realtor to look at land. She would send me parcels that she found. And we really said, okay, whenever you find what land you would like to purchase, how much can you spend? What is your business plan? And then how do we get organized so that you can access financing as soon as you need that, so that you are ready to go and you can sign a purchase agreement, make an offer. You need to have financing lined up to be able to make an offer and get that process moving quickly. With the down payment assistance grant, there is a time limit. You have to use it by June 30th at the latest. You can get an extension, but that's about as late as you can go. So one thing that has bubbled up, and this is common with many of the clients I have in Minnesota who have the MDA down payment assistance grant, is they don't have enough time to apply for an FSA loan, because that can be a 4 to 6 month process, really depending on their particular situation. And so with this client, we talked about how FSA would be a great option for her. However, with this time limit, needing to close before June 30th and also produce on the land this year, she really needed to be able to access some traditional lending. So we went to Compeer and worked with their loan officer, Sai Tao, who works with a lot of emerging farmers, and he is amazing. He's done a lot of work with RTC and doing education and helping us understand the process. And we were able to work with Sai and then also access the Rural Finance Authority. So this is part of the MDA, to access a beginning farmer participation loan. And so this was something that I knew about and that Sai knew about, and we thought would be really helpful for Anita. So we were able to bring that to the client and say, here's this beginning farmer loan. You're going to do all your paperwork through Compeer, and then RFA will buy 45% of the loan, which will drop your interest rate and help offset the pretty high interest rates at the moment, especially in ag lending for raw land. 8% was, I think, around Compeer's rate. And so the RFA beginning farmer loan brought down 45% of the loan portion down to around, I think, 5% or 5.25%. So overall, it brought down the interest rate. And there's some kind of intricacies with the RFA loan that we wanted to be really clear about so that she knew that, but it was a great option since she could not access the FSA beginning farmer loan. So in general, so we moved forward on that. And then the other thing that I'll say that has been really helpful is we brought in Eric Highmark from Renewing the Countryside. So both myself and Eric worked with Anita on her business plan, primarily the financials. So we did a balance sheet for her. We did a 3-year cash flow, a lot of financial education and literacy, but also thinking through her crop plan and her production plan, and looking at it with her to say, okay, here's what the payments are going to be, here's what the loan would be. Does this cash flow? Can you fit this in with the very full life that you have? And talking through the goals and then also the actual finances, which she needed for her Compeer application as well. But just, part of the package of getting ready to buy land. So really grateful that we were kind of able to do that financial and business planning piece as part of it. And then the other thing that I'll say that I think is really valuable about the Navigator piece is that myself as a farmer and many of the navigators as farmers are able to connect these beginning farmers with networks and workshops and classes and just the education that you need when you're a beginning farmer and you're beginning this journey and buying land and really wanting to be successful and needing to learn new skills, learn new types of enterprises and have some support and mentorship there. So just having that support person that you can come back to and touch base with, I think is a really beneficial part of ensuring that we're helping folks get on the land and access land, but also for their long-term success, right? Like that's the goal. Ultimately, is that we have more people on the land and they are successfully farming. So this farmer closed on May 15th, so we're considering that a success, and she is getting ready to start planting her plot and now kind of transitioning to the work of actually growing on her plot of land and figuring that out and getting started here. A couple of things that I just wanted to bring up in terms of challenges that apply to this situation, but also to much of what Bonnie was talking about. The main challenge that I see in working with clients is that they are looking for smaller parcels, and they're often looking around the Twin Cities metro area or other metro areas where they can market into or where they're already working and living. And it's just such a challenge to find those parcels and then for those parcels to be affordable. What has been interesting is that I have 3 farmers who are in the process of, who have signed purchase agreements, are in the process of purchasing land within the next couple weeks. And they are all buying between 4 to 10 acres in the Northwest Metro, and they're buying buildable parcels. So this is ag land that has been rezoned into smaller parcels, which are buildable sites, and they are purchasing them to farm. And many of the parcels surrounding them are being purchased for building. And so they're actually keeping this land in agriculture, but they are paying development prices. They are paying $10,000 an acre average, sometimes more. They're able to do that when they're buying 4 to 10 acres, but they're kind of running up into a lot of the challenges that Bonnie talked about and American Farmland Trust talked about, with just that we are losing farmland. But in this case, it has been a way for these farmers to access land like in proximity to where they live. So I think it will be really interesting to see how that unfolds in the coming years. Some of them are interested in, maybe they will build a home there eventually. You know, they have that option. They have the ability to develop that land. But also it's raw land. It needs electric, it needs irrigation, so potentially digging a well. There's no infrastructure on site, and that's expensive, right? So kind of continuing to work with those folks to help them access FSA loans or other financing grant opportunities to help with some of those beginning startup farm costs. And then just in general, you know, I have witnessed just how confusing, like if you have gone through the process of buying a farm for the first time, it is a very confusing process, and every lender is different. And there's so much paperwork involved and a lot of financial paperwork involved. And so definitely, like, clients stumble along the way, and my job is really to be that person who's either with them to say, oh, this is what they're looking for, or I can call the loan officer, or I can call FSA and have a conversation, because I'm really familiar with the system, to figure out exactly what it is that they need, or exactly what the answer to the question that they have is, right? And kind of walk them through, you know, here's what they're looking for. This is what we need to work on together. Or are you able to work on this and then, you know, tap into me if you need some help. So So yeah, just first time buying questions, and then also working with emerging farmers who are from a different culture. There are just cultural issues that come up. And so as navigators, that can be something that I can kind of help, just like communication, things are not kind of understanding, right? Maybe how FSA works, what they can and can't do, like why it's so bureaucratic. Like some of these questions that just come up for folks has been part of the process of really supporting them. So really rewarding work. I wish there had been navigators around when I was buying a farm. It took us a long time to navigate the FSA process, but very grateful that this service exists now, and I think it's doing great things. And there's a lot of interest and demand, especially in Minnesota with the down payment assistance grant. Just so many folks who receive that and then are kind of like, I don't even know where to begin. So I'm gonna pause there and just see if there's any questions or questions for Bonnie, so we have some time there.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much, Laura. I'm glad Bonnie, yes, feature Bonnie. I'm going to step out of the picture. And I'm going to ask our team who have been fielding this remarkable chat line of questions. Actually, Bonnie, you had a question yourself. Maybe you want to kick it off with that question. And thank you to Alex for her formidable work in giving us links. So Noreen and Allison can work on the chat box with questions, but Bonnie, please open it up. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I feel like I don't work with farmers as much in the metro area, especially in Minnesota. I mostly work with farmers in Wisconsin. Fascinated by this approach to buying land that's actually priced for development. And I think that comes back to, I've learned some stuff recently about the types of land that is causing so much land loss. And it tends to be this they call it low density residential, which is where you have like these like 5 or 10 acre plots that people, are looking for more of a country feel, or maybe they want to have horses. And what happens is that, once that starts to happen, it fractures the landscape into these smaller parcels. And then once utilities and stuff are there and people are living there, then it like invites developers in basically, and they kind of swoop in and then start trying to develop in those areas. So yeah, the prices of the land goes up dramatically per acre when that happens. And I guess like I see how it makes sense for some of these farmers that are sort of desperately trying to access land on a smaller parcel, and that makes sense maybe for 3 or 4 or 5 acres. Beyond that, like if you had livestock, I don't see how that would ever pencil out financially. But I wonder, because in the work that we've done around sort of urban farming environments, there tends to be, or even in, suburban areas, there are a lot of zoning restrictions on land and what you can do with it. So putting up buildings, outbuildings, hoop houses, things like that would be prohibited. And I'm just wondering if you're seeing any of those restrictions in these areas in the metro, and that affecting the farmer's ability to farm the way they want to.
Yeah, with these particular clients, that hasn't come up yet. It may. But that is a huge issue that comes up anecdotally. And then as a farm advocate, people reach out to us with exactly those questions. Like their land is, in the city of Rosemount, but it's zoned agricultural, but then they have to follow city codes, like, all of their rules and regulations. So it's a very common, like, especially with hoop houses, many farm advocates, we deal with that and then have to kind of go back to the state, figure out what is township, have conversations with people, do a lot of education about what that is. But I agree, Bonnie, I think I think that's kind of what I am interested to see with these folks who are buying, kind of in the like next edge of suburbia, right? Um, Especially as development happens around them. How will that impact their ability to farm and what ways that they need to?
Here's a question that we had from Wendy. Thank you, Wendy, so much. The question she had was, how does farmland easement affect the taxes into the future and present for the farmer, landowner, and a renter or a tenant? If you could please cover that, that would be great.
I feel like I should know this a little more in depth than I do in terms of the tax implications of an easement. And my understanding is that the taxes don't change much with an easement on the property. And I know Jan's on the call, so maybe if you have different information, but it tends to affect more of like the sale price. And there's different ways to implement easements in terms of like how the future price will be affected. Some of the work that I've been doing with AFT is that they put these sort of different kinds of restrictions on that are included with the easement, basically. Just trying to explain this in a way that would make sense to everybody. And those might say that the land can be resold for a specific sale price or whatever the price it was bought for, plus a certain amount of not inflation, that's the wrong word, but you know what I mean? So it's like basically like once that easement is on the property, it's always going to be a reduced value. But in my knowledge is that the tax considerations aren't really changed all that much by having the easement on it.
And this is Jan, and I'll just jump in. And I think that it varies some, and so I'm not 100% sure of this, but Dakota County had a program where they had some funds for easements, and I think the way they set it up in their county was that the land would be continued to be taxed at the same rate. But I think there are places where it does because the value of the land goes down. So I think it probably has to do with some of that zoning pieces that Laura talked about. And I know that is kind of I think that's something that a good question, and one I think we can look into more. And get back to folks on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have some more questions coming in. There's kind of a fear of data centers moving in, and if RTC, this is to Jan, is doing anything to kind of combat the data centers kind of buying up and developing land that's good farmland.
We have, unmute. Okay. We have not really done anything along those lines. We have heard that as an issue.
Okay. And another question from Lisa. What amount of land do you need to put into a conservation trust? They have about 1 acre. Is there a minimum amount?
Again, the easements are a little bit complicated. Generally, because, and I guess I'll preface this with saying that, implementing an agricultural conservation easement takes a lot of time. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of negotiations, it's a lot of paperwork, probably usually a year up to 2 years. We usually say about 2 years to implement an agricultural conservation easement. There's generally a team of people behind that that are working to get that implemented. And I think because of that, it needs to be the property that's identified for an easement, it needs to be worth the value, worth the time and work that will be put into it. I think that there's other considerations too in terms of proximity to metro areas, for example, like the development pressure on a piece of land really will determine whether or not it's something that needs to be protected with a conservation easement. So generally we would be looking at larger properties. I don't think there's like a minimum amount. I don't know if AFT actually has a minimum amount, but we're usually looking for like farm size properties, you know, 10 plus acres or more. And it has to sort of be at risk of development for the to be like worth the time and effort to put an easement on it. If there's no development risk, then it doesn't really make sense to go through the effort.
I'm gonna say something different than what Bonnie said in terms of the development pressure, because there has been a real movement, because I think some of you that live like in ag areas, $10,000 an acre is actually low in some ag areas for land. I just think like in Southeast Minnesota, I know we were working with a farm where it was closer to $12,000 an acre, and you go into Iowa and it goes up to like $18,000 an acre. So there has been some work with some land trusts to put an affordability clause into it. So it's really, it doesn't have to have development pressure. It has to be, you know, if it's good land for a new farmer to come into, it can also in that kind of transitioning the land, that can come into play, and that can be used as a way or a reason to put an easement on it, because the land would otherwise not be affordable.
There was a question from one of our individuals too, that they have organic land in Northwest, I think it was Wright County, and wanted to go about getting a organic farmer to rent, possibly buy maybe. Could you address where they should look and who should they talk to help them with this, please?
They're located in Minnesota.
In Wright County in Minnesota. Yeah, Northwest Wright County.
Yeah, I think so. We do work with landowners in Minnesota and Wisconsin who are interested in providing land access, whether it's for rental purposes or doing a full transition. And so we do keep an internal database that we use to take down that information and share with our navigators, who then share with their clients. And so if they have a client who is looking for a particular property and it seems like it would be a good match, we would then refer that client. So that's where, like on our website, there's the intake form for landowners. That is a place where a landowner could go and fill out that intake form, and somebody would reach out, or they could contact me or Jan directly at RTC, and we could do that intake over the phone. And then we would have that information and we could work on our end to try to do a farmer match.
Okay, Allison, can you unmute yourself? You had something you wanted to share. We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks, Noreen. I just want to put in a little plug for another nonprofit working on land access in the northeast of Minnesota. It's called the Land Access Alliance, and they also are working on like more non-traditional land uses, or land like maybe cooperatives or things like that. So if you are in the northeast of Minnesota, I think this is a really great way to connect. I have served on the Northeast Regional Sustainable Development Partnerships with a lot of the folks on this board, and they are go-getters, and the Northeast has a lot to offer for sure. I also, if it's appropriate, want to share a little personal story about learning about land access as a as like a really like, you know, I've always lived in rurally. I've never lived in the metro. I am, you know, very white, you know, lower middle class growing up. And so just didn't have a lot of understanding about what immigrant farmers or maybe other types of emerging farmers are looking for until I went to the Emerging Farmers Conference one year. And I sat with a whole bunch of immigrant farmers and new Americans and other types of emerging farmers. And what I didn't understand is that they don't necessarily want to live on their farm. because they're already living in their community with their families. And that was something that like kind of was really eye-opening for me because I can't imagine not living on my farm. And I really needed to think about land access in another way. And it's we do need folks living on the land everywhere and whatever that looks like for them. So lots of folks where I live want to buy a farmhouse and live on their land and live on their farm. Not everybody wants to do that. So that's my little personal story about land access and sort of learning about all the different types of farmers and seekers and dreamers that are out there. So Bonnie and Laura, this was a great webinar. I'm gonna see what other kind of questions are coming up now. Thank you. Thanks for looking into the Land Access Alliance too.
Your mute's on, Noreen.
There was a concern about keeping land, I think listed as 3B. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Maybe that's incorrect. And maybe it's just an acre. Is there any help or assistance that you guys could help that?
Zoned as A3.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, 3A, yeah, or A3.
I saw that in the chat. I was wondering if that, like the size of the land, or if it's just 1 acre, if it's more. Trying to, oh, Lisa, could you clarify?
That was Patty. If she could unmute, please.
No, that was Lisa.
Okay.
She said agricultural zoning in Goodhue County, A3. Typically refers to, yeah, Alex. Typically refers to an agricultural zoning district, specifically one that allows for lower density residential development alongside agricultural uses.
Yeah. Laura, I don't know if you have any reflections on that. I feel like it's difficult to keep land at any specific kind of zoning. And it's if there's development pressure, generally the development pressure is going to overcome it. I feel like that's where easements can be helpful, but like even an easement could potentially in the long run not work in that situation.
I think it would be worth talking to your somebody on your township board, and then also a county commissioner to understand how it works in your county, because it is different in every county.
Could you ladies also cover, when we talk about easements, things that people maybe don't know, like you can't build a house on an easement conservation. So those sort of things, of perimeters of what that means or what that doesn't mean.
Sure. So in my knowledge is more of agricultural conservation easements than regular conservation easements. And when we work with farmers on agricultural conservation easements, we really try to write the easements with the farmer who's going to be living on the land. So the incoming farmer generally is going to be giving input, or if you're a landowner and just implementing an easement, you would be the one giving the input. But we really try to make them as flexible as possible, because like the goal is really to preserve the land and create a viable farm business into the long term, which could include like putting in housing for family in the future, or housing for farm workers in the future, or needing to put up more infrastructure. And so generally with these agricultural conservation easements, there are, building envelopes sort of included so that you can kind of reserve that space for future building. That's generally the biggest one. We try not to dictate like what kind of farming practices, for example, that you would be able to do on the land, because we know that agriculture can change dramatically. I think some people are worried about that. There are there are like some land trusts, for example, that do it differently, and they may put an agricultural conservation easement on the land that says it has to be farmed organically or some particular kind of farming, and we try not to do that. At least the work that I've done at RTC in partnership with AFT. It seems like the direction that we're going is making those agreements as flexible as possible. And just writing things in so that if something changes down the line, there's that flexibility of updating the easement so that it works well for whoever the current tenant is. But if there's more specific questions about that, or anything in particular, please let me know.
Well, and I can just say that in working with American Farmland Trust, you know, what they do is with the easements and the ones we've done so far, we've worked with, they hold the easement, although, you know, Minnesota Land Trust in Minnesota is starting to do some hold some agricultural easements, but they do connect in the easement. It refers to a sustainability plan. And so that's how that information is, like, what the AFT will work with the farmer to put together a sustainability plan. So it really is asking the farmer to farm in ways that are sustainable, but the plan can change. And so it's not, you know, written in that easement that, you know, once it's written, you really can't make changes to the easement, but you could make changes as a sustainability plan. So that's way, like, you know, if you say organic farming and then, you know, I don't know, in 5 years, organic farming, there's a different thing, you know, that that's better or something, then there would be a way to do it because the easements are, you know, the easement holder has to visit that farm every year and make sure that, you know, what was said in the easement is being, you know, that they don't, you know, it isn't split up into a bunch of, you know, 20 houses or whatever. So there's that. But really, I think, especially with AFT, because that's who we have experience working with, like, they are very, like, they really want this to be like a partnership between the landowner and that organization, and not kind of a, you know, they have their things, again, it becomes a legal document that goes along with the deed. So there are things that have to be, you know, checked on, but it's really wanting the farmers to succeed.
Hi, everyone. I want to just check in, and it's 1:04, and with respect to your time, we don't want to go over. We are getting more questions, but maybe we can follow up with you after this webinar. If everybody would come onto the screen and we could reduce the speakers, we would I can take a picture, maybe Chris will take a picture of all of the women who have joined us today. Because we like to document this incredible turnout. Thank you so much, everyone. As soon as we get as many faces as possible, we're going to take a picture here. This looks great. Thank you. Thank you all. Now, I want to just share with you before you depart that our June webinar looks like it's going to be on foraging and forest farming. Is that right, Allison? Yeah, okay. And in July, it's going to be on beneficial birds. And we're excited about that as well. I want to thank Laura and Bonnie so much for this work, the work that you're doing, and the knowledge that you shared with us. It was really, really interesting. That's it today for Minnesota Women in Conservation and Renewing the Countryside. Thank you all for being with us.